because he worked optimizing grocery store pricing at McKinsey, because he joined the Navy in hopes of promoting democracy in Afghanistan, because he got gay married. Do you know that? He got gay married to his partner Chasten in 2018. And because as a mayor of South Bend, Indiana, he agitated to bring hipster entrepreneurism and high-tech investments to his Rust Belt hometown. Brace yourself for the cringe. Pete Buttigieg loves God, beer, and his electric Mustang. Sure, the U.S. Secretary of Transportation has thoughts on building bridges, but the infrastructure occupies just a sliver of his voluminous mind. His voluminous mind. You can hear how the author or the writer had a thesaurus open as he was writing this. The curious mind of Pete Buttigieg holds much of its functionality in reserve. The curious mind of Pete Buttigieg holds much of its functionality in reserve, even as he discusses railroads and airlines down to the pointless data that is his current stock in trade. The U.S. Secretary of Transportation comes off like a Mensa Black card holder who might have a secret go habit. Oh my God, they are so fucking, he might have a secret go habit. Or a 3-second Rubik's Cube solution. Or a knack for supplying, off the top of his head, the day of the week for a random date in 1404, along with a non-condescending history of the Julian and Gregorian calendar. Non-condescending history of the Julian and Gregorian calendar? What would a condescending history of the Julian and Gregorian calendars look like? It is, oh my God, he is so humble. He has this vast knowledge of things that you don't have knowledge on. I program. What the fuck does Pete Buttigieg know about C#, PHP, JavaScript, Java? I don't know anything about Java. Python. How OOP? How do you like? He has interests. Okay. Good. Do your job still. As Secretary Buttigieg and I talked in his unfurnished corner office one afternoon in early spring, I slowly became aware that his cabinet job requires only a modest portion of his cognitive powers. Other mental facilities, no kidding, are apportioned to the Iliad, Puritan historiography, and Knausgaard's Spring, though not in the original Norwegian. Slacker. Yeah, unfurnished. Like, he is putting up such a hard facade. Like, it's all just, it has to, he is so fucking scripted that he has scripted his entire, his office, his corner office. Like, they make a point of mentioning the corner office, and then in relation to the unfurnished corner office. It is all just a facade. Of course, if you come home to him, is it Spartan in his house? No, of course not. What kind of car? He drove an electric Mustang. Pete Buttigieg. Yeah, he drives this. But his corner office, now that's unfurnished because he's not materialistic, you know. That's why he drives a Mustang. Because he's not materialistic. You see, if you're materialistic, you drive something like what's a flashy car? Oh, a Mustang, perhaps. Maybe, like perhaps. Fortunately, he was willing to devote yet another apse in his cathedral mind to making his ideas about three mighty themes: neoliberalism, masculinity, and Christianity intelligible to me. Because, those things are unintelligible otherwise. Why are you denigrating yourself so much, Virginia? Why are you denigrating yourself to a fucking troglodyte? I saw the face of God in a semiconductor factory. Who are you? Who writes like this? I understand why Wired hired you. Like, this is gold. I saw the face of... She must be so bullied at her workplace. As the U.S. boosts production of silicon chips, an American journalist goes inside TSMC, the mysterious Taiwanese company at the center of the global industry. Okay, Virginia. I see you. Because Buttigieg, at 41, is an old millennial. Because as a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford, he got a first in PPE, philosophy, politics, and economics, the trademark degrees for Labour Party elites of the Tony Blair era. Because he worked optimizing grocery store pricing at McKinsey. Because he joined the Navy in hopes of promoting democracy in Afghanistan. Because he got gay married. Do you know that? He got gay married to his partner Chasten in 2018. And because as a mayor of South Bend, Indiana, he agitated to bring hipster entrepreneurism and high-tech investments to his Rust Belt hometown. Do you hear that? Voters? Do you hear that? He is not only is he from the Rust Belt, not only is he from a small town in the Rust Belt, but also, do you hear that, elites? He wanted to bring Silicon Valley to the Rust Belt. It sounds like, he's learned. He's Democrats. You like learned people, right? But you like highly educated people, right? That's good. Republicans. He was a Navy, and he wanted to bring democracy to Afghanistan and kill some fucking brown people. Do you hear that? Oh, but Democrats. Yeah, he was a Navy, but he's gay married. Come on, he's gay married. Republicans, he's from the Rust Belt. Democrats, he likes Silicon Valley. Like, they are doing everything. Oh, and because all of this, apparently. Oh, and he's a millennial. Millennials, you like millennials, like, right, millennials? AOC is a millennial. You like millennials, right. We do like people a lot more if they do their job. A lot more. But because he's all of this, because he got gay married, and because he's from Rust Belt hometown, I had to ask him because of all of this, I had to ask him about neoliberalism. The happy idea that consumer markets and liberal democracy will always expand. Like it's a fucking gravity. Like here. I found the issue with neoliberalism. Consumer markets and liberal democracy will not always expand. There, I solved it. And always expand together. You can't have markets without a liberal democracy, okay? But it absolutely loves neoliberalism. But I'm going to be honest. I've already read the starting position portion of this article, and I'm like, yeah, I can't continue here. But just beware. I'm going to tell you what I haven't read anymore. And we'll always expand together. I was also fascinated by the way that Buttigieg, who has long described himself as obsessed with technology and data, has responded to the gendering of tech, and especially green tech, by fearsome culture warriors, including Marjorie Taylor Greene. I was also fascinated by the way that Buttigieg, who has long described himself as obsessed with technology and data. Why am I wearing these? There's no audio. Also obsessed with technology and data, has responded to the gendering of tech and especially green tech by fearsome culture warriors, including... What? What are they talking about? Buttigieg, whose father was a renowned Marxist scholar, talk about embarrassing. You go from Marxist scholar and get a neoliberal son? Oh, he must feel like such a fucking loser. Like, oh, I failed my son miserably here. Unless he's just a scholar and doesn't believe in it himself, which it doesn't really make sense. Was himself a devotee of Senator Bernie Sanders as a young man. He now recognizes that the persistence of far-right ideology, that include, far-right doesn't include neoliberalism, but okay, with its masculinist and anti-democratic preoccupations is part of the reason that neoliberalism has come undone. It's not entirely wrong, but the reason the far-right ideologies stick around is because of neoliberalism. You can't remove the far-right ideologies without minimizing the right side, the right ideologies. You have to emphasize left-wing ideologies in order to remove the far-right ideologies. But you're not. You're actively hindering left-wing ideologies from ever gaining traction within your own party. God, do I have to do everything? Not everyone, it seems, even wants a rising standard of living if it means they have to accept the greater enfranchisement of undesirables, including, of course, women, poor people, black people, and the usual demons in the sights of the world's Ted Cruz's and Tucker Carlson's. He also talked about his faith. Lefties these days are said to be less religious than right-wing evangelicals. But between Buttigieg, whose Episcopalianism grounds his decision-making, and his boss, President Joe Biden, whose robust Catholicism drives his sincere efforts to revive America's soul, perhaps a religious left is rising again. Lefties these days, between Buttigieg and President Joe Biden, I'm not seeing any lefties on here. I'm not seeing Bernie Sanders be mentioned here. I'm not seeing. Let's call AOC lefties. Ilhan Omar, I'm not seeing her here. Because despite being a Muslim, guess what? She doesn't talk about it. Senator Sanders, despite being Jewish, doesn't talk about it. Now, granted, that might have something to do with them being, not Christians, being part of the bad religions. Sure, that might be part of it. Another reason is because they're actually more on the left than you guys. Virginia Heffernan, what is neoliberalism? And what happened to it? Oh, the hard-hitting questions. Pete, when it comes to neoliberalism, we got mugged by reality. That's one cheeky way to put it. He's not wrong. He absolutely isn't wrong there. Reality doesn't agree with neoliberalism. Good job. You got one. Poor old liberals. I'm guessing this is Virginia again. Always getting mugged by reality or just muggers. What? Look, in the early parts of my adulthood, neoliberalism was described almost as a consensus that just made sense, at least to everybody in positions of influence. Now it's very different. We have experienced the end of history. We have certainly experienced the limitations of the consensus. None of the assumptions from between roughly 1991 and 2008 have survived. He's not wrong, again. Specifically, certainly not the idea that the global move towards democracy, this is where I stopped reading. Certainly not the idea that the global move towards democracy is a one-way street, nor the idea that greater integration between markets and governments mean greater harmony politically, nor the idea that if we acted to make sure the pie gets bigger, everyone's slice would follow suit, which was the promise that was made to the industrial Midwest at the time of NAFTA. It sounds like he's going to say, you know what, I'm no longer a neoliberal. I've seen the errors in my way, but something tells me he's going to say, but all of this is because of X. The far-right ideologies. We have to get rid of them, otherwise we can't. The lived reality of the younger generation is that they are experiencing climate issues, not as a theoretical possibility. Oh God, I've heard this quote. Not as a theoretical possibility, but as a clear and present danger. These are generations that have experienced the reality that disparities, including racial disparities, left alone will only compound. They won't cure of their own gravitational tendencies. Let me just go wank myself in the bathroom at the vocabulary of Pete Buttigieg. This is one thing that liberals and I guess especially neoliberals always fall back on. They love their big vocabulary. It sounds so smart. And you can get away with saying so little with so many words as long as you use the right big words. The best orators, the best linguists, the people who bring the audience to tears are not the people who use these kinds of words in this type of order. They are the people who speak concisely, clearly, and to the point. Buttigieg, speak concisely, speak clearly, and to the point. Now, at times, we all get carried away. We all can get flowery with our wording. Sure. But these are generations that have experienced the reality that disparities, including racial disparities, left alone, will only compound. They won't cure of their own gravitational tendencies. Just say the younger generations have experienced hardships unlike any other generation, because the previous generation's hardships have only increased, have only compounded, and left alone, they won't be solved. We need action. They won't cure of their own gravitational tendencies. Sorry, I need to... Or tendencies of the market? Right. Because market tendencies depends very much on what you have to begin with. The initial endowment, as economists call it, just say your socioeconomic status. But your initial endowment looks very different if your previous generation was dispossessed. Just say poor. You can say poor. Poor is a word. I've heard poor being used previously in my life. I've used the word poor. I'm sure Pete Buttigieg hasn't fried his mind enough to not know the word poor. Okay, I'm going to stop harp on the flowery, excessive language, unless it's really excessive. But just know that I know, and I'm gonna give you a hint, but I know, but I don't have to harp on it. Okay. Last year I was in Berlin as they were confronting the tectonic disruption that had been caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. They have this very German word for it, Zeitenwende. Now, okay, we're gonna do translate, detect, turning point. It just directly translates to turning point. But I'm sure this is actually turning point, Zeichenwende speech. Okay, so there's actually, because I'm thinking in Sweden we have a word called vändplats, which is turning spot. And I wonder if this isn't time. Okay, Zeiten. Okay, it's turning times is the literal translation. Then it's not what I thought. That's not what I thought. A turning point is more accurate term, but it's like they have this German word for it, Zeitenwende, which just directly translates to a turning point. It's just a word for it. There's no in German and in Swedish, I'm sure Danish and Nordic languages, I'm sure. But I know German and Swedish. You compound words. So these are two separate words that you just like turning point, a lot. A lot. This should be, in Swedish and in German, this would have been one word, but it's not. But really, it should be. But that's like, you just compound words. It's not, there's nothing special about the word. It's not like lagom or in Swedish, or which is just right, but it's not just right. It is the perfect amount for the specific situation that you're in, and it's enough to satiate you, but it's not enough not necessarily enough to make you full. Perhaps if we were talking about food, if we're talking about beverages, lagom might be just you're feeling satiated. You're feeling you've quenched your thirst. It is, but it's not just quenching the thirst. You get a little bit extra, perhaps, and that's lagom. Then we have What's the Danish word? Is it hyle? I think. Hyle. Like, these are words. No, I can't remember. But that lagom and the Danish word I can think of, these are words that describe things that is very culturally defined. Like, I can translate lagom is there's English. Okay. Just the right amount, or not too much, or and not too little. The word can be various translated in moderation, like imbalance, perfectly simple. Like, there's not one word that English can use. Now, that's a word you can say. They have this very Swedish word for it, lagom, meaning just right. But here, it's just a German translation of a turning point. There's no whatever. I'm sure, by the way. I'm 90% sure of this. The war blew up. Their presumption that when it came to Russia, more integration between it and Europe would mean more stability. I mean, it's worked before. The idea behind this is, by having an integrated economy, if you attack me, you doom yourself. Is mutually assured destruction. But in this case, Russia is only destroying themselves because they're still not attacking the EU. Like, Russia, this is so we've seen in the last few days how the whole world, including China now, completely disavow Russia's actions. Completely. They haven't said it, but their actions speak louder than words. They had a summit in Japan where Russia wasn't divided. Ukraine was. They had where has Zelensky? He has been on a speaking tour, hasn't he? G7 summit in Hiroshima. China doesn't invite Russia. Right. That's not the thing. Russia isn't really about bringing to... I remember seeing something saying that China... Okay, if we just do this... Russia and China hit back at the G7 that saw them as a threat. Sunak. No, I remember seeing something about China. I might be wrong about this, though. Okay, never mind. I might be wrong about that then. The rest of the world, however, completely disavows Russia. And what happened, probably, why this idea broke down, is probably because China is starting to become a viable alternative to relying on the US at the moment, or the US economy, or Western economy. China is becoming a viable alternative. So Russia's like, we can just hang with our buddies instead of you guys. So it's open season now. Like, it's a declaration of we're leaving the Western markets and going over here instead. That's pretty much what happened. And that's why it broke down. So the idea isn't wrong. It's just not complete, I guess. Anyway, This has been our presumption about China too. The greater economic integration would mean not just greater stability, but a more or less inevitable move on the part of China into greater acceptance of democratic norms, market norms, and a rules-based international order. We've come to the point where super integrated, but that we've come to the point where we are super integrated, but that economic relationship with China has not yielded the kind of comfort that was promised. That is true. The rising tide lifts all boat promise has not been fulfilled. Again, I'm feeling like he's building up to disavowing neoliberalism, but I have a sneaking suspicion that he won't. As we careen toward the second quarter of the century, suddenly, industrial policy sounds less retro and more like a response to the time. Yeah, things are cyclical, I guess. Industrial policy, is that paleoliberalism? Well, there are some new, or at least renewed, ways of thinking about transportation policy we work on at DOT that embrace the importance of public investment. Hold on. Hold it. Shut up. I don't care. Which is a big part of the philosophy of the infrastructure bill. There are more than 32,000 new infrastructure projects now underway in every state and territory all across the country. We created an interactive map so people can see what's up in their communities. Let's see this interactive map. Okay, this is not my internet. This is so not my internet's issue. Can we translate it? Yes, we can. Like, this is not my issue here. This is not close to my issue. Not even a little bit close to my endpoint issue. I've made sure that this is not my issue. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh my God, I can't. Okay, that's a horrible website. Thank you, Pete Buttigieg. Thank you. That's a horrible website. Maybe invest in some internet broadband for your department. Maybe. We're also facing the effects of anti-competitive behavior in pretty much every industry connected to the movement of people and goods. Connected to the movement of people and goods? Connected to the movement of people and goods. What? Especially in every industry, in pretty much every industry connected to transportation is what you're saying. Movement of people and goods, please. Was there maybe a comeback of a pared down version of neoliberalism, or at least the hope that markets and democracy might work in sync when Ted Cruz coined woke Coke? Is that the snorting kind? To show contempt for Coca-Cola. Nope. Coca-Cola's protest of voter suppression in Georgia. Well, yes. There's something delicious about the way that Ted Cruz and the rest of them have positioned themselves on the side of the fence. On one side of the fence. And Netflix, Coca-Cola, Disney, and Bud Light are on the other side, along with most of America. There may in fact be a center of gravity, oh my God, in this country that includes both a democratic majority of the American people and even something of a consensus, at least among mainstream business leaders. We have certain commitments around democracy and inclusion that are really elemental to the whole system. Okay? You're not... What are you saying here? There may be a center of gravity in this country that includes both a democratic majority of the of the American people, and even something of a consensus, at least among the mainstream business leaders. We have certain commitments around democracy and inclusion that are really elemental to the whole. What are you saying? There may be a center of gravity in this country. Okay. What? Are you saying that, the democratic majority of the American people and mainstream business leaders are the star that everything else revolves around? Like, that's what you're saying here, Buttigieg. That is what you're saying, and it's fucking cringe. Just say a majority of American people and a majority of business leaders seems to be in agreement on this. There, just get to the fucking point. But also, what are you gonna do about that? Because I agree. Most Americans vote Democrats. And yet, the outcome is always a coin toss. What are you going to do about it? Why is it that Republicans can win with a minority vote? Why is that? True, but the right likes to dismiss any political action, even in the name of elemental American ideals, as pretense or virtue signaling. I think of the time Putin defined the Kremlin's enemy as foie gras, oysters, and what? But the right likes to dismiss any political action, even in the name of elemental American ideals, as pretense or virtue signaling. I think of the time Putin defined the Kremlin's enemy as foie gras, oysters, and gender freedoms. We're talking about American politics. Why are you bringing up Putin here? An American conservative might hear him say, okay, foie gras pronouns, annoying, pretentious. Sure, what? An American conservative might hear him and say, okay, foie gras pronouns, annoying, pretentious. Sure, what? But do Republicans really want to be dragged into a bigger far-right project, including the renunciation of democracy, modernity, civil rights, human? Yes, they do. What is this question? Yes, they do. Have you not been paying attention? Look, the mainstream right's political project was twofold. It was to prevent legal access to abortions and to sustain lower taxes for the wealthy. No, it was about power, period. It's always just about power, period. And money. But money is power, so. Those are kind of the two greatest pillars of the mainstream right now. No, they're not. Like, I agree, this is where the battle is held at the moment. This is what the fight is about, the culture fight, the culture war is about at the moment. But that's not what the war is about. The war is about so much more. It's about fucking democracy. It's about fucking power. Hey. And those are two kinds of people mentioned. They're now the dog that caught the car. And to switch metaphors, they rode a tiger to get there? Rode a tiger to get there? I've never heard this metaphor. To become or find yourself responsible for something risky, precarious, and unsafe to abandon, to do something that is safer to continue than it is to quit. I mean, I guess. They made a lot of distasteful bargains in order to get there. Something that sometimes the military of all institutions come under attack from the far right on ideological grounds. Yet another front in the culture war. Have he never Russia military ad. Have he never seen this?
Это первый день твоей новой жизни.
Like,
То, что было вчера,
can we
не
get some
имеет
text?
значения. То, кем ты был прежде, уже никого не волнует. Теперь важно то, кем ты будешь сегодня. Что ты знаешь о себе? На что ты способен? Вопросы могут остаться без ответов, но разве ты сможешь потом спокойно спать? Узнать себя, познать границы своих возможностей. К черту границы. Ты готов ломать себя до изнеможения. Каждый день здесь боль закаляет. Шрамы, повседневность. Это ты решил себе что-то доказать. Командир здесь только для того, чтобы ты мог увидеть в нем врага. Потому что без врага нет боя, а без боя нет победы. Но на самом деле, главный враг — это ты.
So fucking cool. Like, this is what the Republicans want. And then we see a US military ad. And we have shit like this.
This
like
is
cartoons.
The story of a soldier who operates your nation's Patriot missile defense systems.
Women.
It begins in California.
Lesbian parents.
Think of
like, of course they're gonna call the military woke. The issue Republicans have is gay people. They hate gay people. Of course they hate gay people. They want the military to look strong, not be strong. They think they want it to be strong, but what they really want is for it to look strong. So of course, everything that makes it not look strong is gonna be woke. Of course. Like he's like, oh, the military of all institutions. Oh. Of course. And this is nothing to do with abortions. The woke Pentagon. You could add that to the list. Bud Light, Coke, football, Disney, and the army. You can only put yourself on the wrong side of so many red, white, and blue American institutions. And the question becomes, is this about you? Like, notice that he is saying, if you disagree with people, you are probably in the wrong. I agree that you should question, like, nobody agrees with me. Is it me? Is it me? Like, I can see that is a valid question. But that's not why he's saying this. Speaking of, it is about you. Speaking of, is this about you? Have you followed the masculinity crusade? Sorry. Have you followed the masculinity crusade of former TV personality Tucker Carlson, testicle warming, and the rest? I mean, where to begin on this? Fears about masculinity are way into the fear of displacement. Masculinity establishes a default place, and that place is being shifted and threatened by modernity. A man as the head of the household, the only one who earns income, the default leader in any social and political organization. The politicization of masculinity is code for nothing in your life has to change. No. I don't think so. I would disagree. I would absolutely disagree with this. The problem is, of course, lots of things has to change. Either because there was something wrong with the old way, or because even as the old way seemed perfectly fine, it's not an option. If the old ways... What? If the old ways seem perfectly fine, then why wouldn't they be an option? I don't know. This is true with the reality of climate change. If you can't face that change, you might... yeah, okay. So you're saying that the past seemed perfectly fine, even in spite of climate change. Well, I'm saying no. Because of climate change, the past doesn't seem perfectly fine. What are you... like, he's trying to walk such a fucking tightrope. Or a tightrope? Is it called a tightrope? I think it's called a tightrope. He's trying to walk that line so fucking perfectly fine. Like, oh, you like the past is perfect, but we have climate change. But the past is perfect, but we have climate change. No, the past isn't fucking perfectly fine. We've known this for fucking decades, half a fucking century. The past is not perfectly fine. This is not new. This is old news. If you can't face that change, you might retreat to the default place of masculinity. Maybe that's why someone characterized electric vehicles as emasculating. I think it was Marjorie telling it, are they not? Are they not? Oh, are electric cars not emasculating? Oh, to me, a car is a car. That's bullshit. Okay, I'm not a car person. I've never changed oil myself. I've hardly ever changed tires myself. I don't know. Something breaks in my car and I leave it at the service station. Or a friend or acquaintance who can fix it. You know, I know nothing about cars. But when that Mustang purrs, oh my God, does that awaken something in me? Like, it's just growling. My grandfather had an old Mustang. Was it 67 perhaps? Might have been a 67. Might have been. It was in bad shape though. But I made him promise to give it to me on my 18th birthday. He sold it on after I turned 15. But God, would I have wanted that car. Yeah, it might have been this car. It was such a fun car. No, it's not this car. This car has seat belts in the back. That car didn't have it. That was part of the fun of riding it. You didn't have any seat belts in the back. Every summer when I was a kid, Grandpa used to ride around in this. And I couldn't wait. Like every time I went to my grandparents, I went out into the garage just to look at it. I think it's the most beautiful car ever. But as someone who isn't a car person, I could never own it. I realize. Because I have no fucking clue what to do. I don't know how to fix shit when they break in these types of cars. I don't know how to fix shit that breaks in the modern cars. Now, I know these cars are easier to maintain. That doesn't matter here. That does not matter. So a car is not a car. Now, again, he's trying to, it's just a car. You're just supposed to drive from point A to point B, which is why I own a fucking Mustang. Fuck you. Actually, if that was true, you would have owned a Prius. Come on. You would have owned a fucking Prius. Actually, the electric truck has got some torque. Has got more torque than a regular truck. Truck? You're talking about cars. And it'll tow just as well. And yet EVs unaccountably fall on the fem side of the ledger like impossible burgers. What? Have they heard of Elon Musk. What the fuck are they talking about? Right. A lot of this discussion about masculinity doesn't have anything to do with the immediate function that's at stake. I'm thinking about burgers, right? I love good cheeseburgers. I hate a bad veggie burger. I like a good veggie burger. The Burger King Impossible Whopper with bacon is not a bad combo. Likewise, there's no fucking way he ever eats at Burger King. Like, never. Likewise, when it comes to driving, I mean, there's a very literal, physical, technical sense in which power is at stake when you drive. It feels good to be driving a vehicle with a lot of power. The vehicle I get around DC in is a Mustang Mach-E. The fact that Ford made one of their first electric vehicles a Mustang is probably not an accident. It has 3 modes: whisper, engage, and unbridled. There are propulsion sound effects involved in the different modes to help you feel conscious of the power of the engine. Clearly, we have a chance to rewrite some of... Okay, so the reason, probably, that they made the Mustang one of their first electric vehicles is because what I said here. This. Like, I'm sure more women drive electric cars than men. I don't like and okay, I'm sure more women drive electric cars than men. Sure. I can absolutely believe that. That does not mean that they fall on the femme side of things. I'm also sure, or I also feel like a roaring motor is fucking masculine. Sure. That does not mean that the electric vehicle is feminine. Just because the combustion engine is masculine does not mean the electric engine is feminine. But that's probably why the first electric vehicle from Ford was a Mustang, to encourage men to buy more electric vehicles, to make that not a default option, but a viable option. You know, they see the power of the car. Everyone looks at a Mustang. Mustangs scream masculine. Absolutely. Clearly, we have a chance to rewrite some of the easy gender tropes. My life happens to cut across them. I like drinking beer, lifting weight, splitting woods. No fucking shot. No shot you enjoy splitting woods. Oh my... Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg splitting woods. Unless he's talking about his husband's dick, he's fucking lying. And there's not a single image. I'm also gay. Do you know that Pete Buttigieg is gay? He's gay? Oh my god, is Pete gay? And I like playing piano. Hey, Screen Dream. I do a lot of the caregiving for our toddlers and other things that supposedly aren't masculine. Your secrets are safe. This is like, okay, this might be my Swedish half talking, my Swedish upbringing talking here. Nothing he said here is gay. Like nothing. Or gay. Freudian slip, I guess. Nothing he said here isn't masculine. Everything he said is not Nothing he said here isn't masculine. Is that the way? Yeah. Double negative means everything is positive. Okay. Nothing he said here isn't masculine. Being gay, like an old. I heard this from an old Australian, an old clip from an Australian comedian, whose name I can't remember, but fucking a dude is the most masculine thing I can think of. Period. Like, you want to fuck a girl? Ugh. Like, that's fucking gay. That's gay, bro. That's fucking gay. That's true if he's top or bottom. I have a sneaking suspicion. Pete Buttigieg. Like they're maybe actually. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's a because I have a sneaking suspicion. Like, look at this. That's the most flamboyant greeting I can ever think of. But it might actually be a like a lot of doms or femdoms have clients in very high positions of power. Very, very high positions of power. So it might be one of those situations. That's fair. But unless it's one of those situations, he's not. That's not like that's fucking masculine, bro. Bruh. Playing piano. Oh. Do you want to see someone who's fucking feminine? How about why can't I think of their name? Mozart. God. Oh yeah, dude. What a so fucking feminine, dude. Like he is, but I mean that's the masculine trend of the date. Beethoven. Oh yeah, dude. Oh, so fucking feminine, dude. Yeah, bro. So fucking feminine, dude. Caregiving for toddlers and other things that supposedly aren't like caregiving, yes, culturally. When it's your own, one of the reasons why caregiving. What have I done here? One of the reasons why caregiving is seen as a feminine trait today is because in the 90s, as late as the 1990s, we had a PDF file, Adobe PDF file, scare for male caregivers within the school system or the kindergarten system. Like any man in that position was seen as a suspect. And every man was scrutinized, villainized, and questioned. Why do they want to work in caregiving? Do they want access to the kids? Turns out that's going to scare a lot of men away from that profession. Because who wants to be labeled an Adobe PDF file? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. However, I would contend, like that's not the only reason, of course. That's just the most recent reason, I think. Or the recent large reason. And then there's so okay, but to me, caring for kids is not a feminine thing. The way you care for kids, okay, soccer coach or a football coach or whatever coach, sports coach. That is being a caregiver, not for toddlers, but for kids. Is that fucking feminine, bro? Bruh. Is that fucking feminine? That's fucking masculine as hell, bro. Your secrets are safe with me. So what's going on? So what's going to stop the androgen-adled, Putin-besotted ideologues? What? When it comes to conspiracy theories and extreme partisan ideologies, I found two things are true. One, it's always more people than you would think, disturbingly so. But it's also almost always much less than a majority. The problem, of course, is there are some features of the American system that you could be a long way from the majority and still take control of certain decisions. We're seeing a lot of majoritarian movements with, of course, abortion being an example. But fact still matters when a fact is challenged. By the way, he backs the wing of the party that didn't want to codify abortion rights into law. That is who because it wasn't needed. They're never gonna Roe v. Wade. That settled law. It's never gonna be overturned. It can't be overturned. That would be a disaster. Yeah, it would. But fact still matters. When a fact is challenged, or a supposed fact like the Russian Federation's army is unbeatable, right? I have to think that catches up to you. At a certain point in Russia, like they're jumping all over the place here. At a certain point in Russia, for example, you see those charts by region of the areas that suffer the most casualties. Just as a statistical matter, it is impossible for a false narrative to hold. And here in the US, the confrontation with reality comes every time I get a letter of support from a House Republican for a transportation project using funds from the bill they voted against. It's shameless. And here in the US, confrontation with reality comes every time I get a letter of support. A letter of support. I don't know what a letter of support is necessarily. From a House Republican for a transportation project using funds from the bill they voted against. So, I hate this line of shame. It is fucking stupid. The shame is you didn't want these funds to be allocated. Therefore, when you apply for funding for a project from those funds, hypocrisy. No, fuck that. I don't care. That's like nothing. So the money is already there. It has to be spent on something. They didn't want any of those funds. Okay, then we can have that discussion. But I can imagine a world where I applied for funds that I didn't believe in because I've paid for those funds to be there through my taxes. So why wouldn't I apply for funding for a project from those funds? They were already there. There's nothing I can do to stop them being there. It's the worst kind of hypocrisy burning. It's shameless. It's one thing if when they after the fact praise the project they voted against. That is one thing. And they're like, we passed this bill and it helped so many people while they voted against it. If they come out and say, you know what, I was wrong, I should have voted for it, and then they praise it, that is one thing. But that's not what they do. That's the type of hypocrisy burning I like. But it's also reassuring that they're the first to come to a ribbon cutting when we fund a project in their community. It's a reminder that there is such a thing as true and false. I mean, is there? These funds are helping all over the country. That's true. And one thing that's false is that it was a good idea to be against these funds. Oh, he's trying so hard. He's like, I'm going to shoehorn this true and false statement here. People like infrastructure, I guess. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene isn't pro pothole. Exactly. Everyone here cares about delivering on the president's view that the way we vindicate democracy at a time when democracy really is being challenged frontally is we take care of the basics. In my corner of the administration, we work on things like fixing bridges and holes in the road and keeping people safe in the transportation systems. Another major goal of ours is to reverse the rise of roadway deaths in this country. Another major goal of ours is to reverse the rise of roadway deaths in this. Why just what? Like, it's such a bad. Just say you want to reverse the rise of the roadway deaths. If it also helps other countries, that's good. That's good. Sweden. Let's just be fucking patriotic for a moment here. Let's puff out our chest and go, oh, we are Sweden. Okay? Volvo, when it was state-owned, the glory days of Volvo, not now. No, absolutely not now. Fucking Republicans, fucking moderates, fucking right-wingers sold out Volvo of all companies. Maybe social democrats did as well. Anyway. Volvo, back in the 70s, invented the 3-point seatbelt. The 3-point safety belt from Volvo, the most effective lifesaver in traffic for 50 years. We did that. And when I say we, I mean other people. When I say we, I mean the engineers. But well, I didn't really do because I wasn't alive there. Well, my parents did. What Sweden as a nation did, because it was state-owned. Hey, socialist. The point of the idea behind the seatbelt was to save lives. So what did they do? They gave the fucking patent away for free. Anybody could use it. Anybody can still use it. That's the type of companies that the Swedish state used to run. Back when we were actually more left-wing at least. That's the type of companies the Swedish state used to run. Oh, this can save lives away from of people other than Volvo. Can you imagine if they just said, no, this is our patent. Fuck you. Only we can use it. So the only cars with a 3-point seatbelt. This is an alternative fucking reality. The only people who were allowed to have a 3-point seatbelt were Volvo drivers. Could you imagine such a fucking reality? The horror, the amount of deaths alone for everyone except for the mega rich, because they could afford Volvos. The ratings on Volvo cars for a century would be off the charts compared to other cars. There wouldn't be other car companies if Volvo hadn't given them the 3-point seatbelt. That's the type of country Sweden used to be. I'm saying this in contrast to another major goal of ours is to reverse the rise of roadway deaths in our country. In our country. Because here's the thing. What the Swedish government, I'm guessing, or maybe just the board, but they're owned by the Swedish government. So whatever. What they realized, what Volvo back in the day realized, because they didn't have the same profit incentive that they have today, is, hey, if the only people who can ride with 3-point seatbelts are the ones that can afford a Volvo, that's going to make the Volvo's price skyrocket. Because every fucking celebrity, every fucking government, every fucking just rich person, rich enough, is gonna buy a fucking Volvo, and we can just up with the price. So instead, they gave it away so that even the poorest people who can barely afford a rundown Seat Nissan, that's two car, whatever, a 30-year-old Seat something with half an engine. Even the people who need that can at least get a 3-point seatbelt. The best safety feature that has ever been invented in a car, probably. But nope. Neoliberalism, it's just us. That is it. Early data suggests we may be seeing those numbers stop rising and then go down. That could be the most important thing we do here. Because one day's worth of roadway deaths in this country represent more death and destruction than a year's worth of losses across the rest of our transportation system. So given how hard we work to push the number of, for example, accidental railway casualties from the single digits towards zero, and to make sure there are not just airlines crashes, and to make sure there are not just no airline crashes, but no close call with airlines. What it would mean to reverse that rise in roadway deaths, which claims about 40,000 lives a year, yeah, it's an enormous one. What it would mean to reverse the rise of the roadway deaths. What it would mean to reverse the rise in roadway deaths, which claims about 40,000 lives a year. Yeah, that's an enormous one. You're not finishing the sentence here. Whatever. Do you think that administration work on the basics is getting through. Every time I go to celebrate a new bridge, we have a great time with local leaders who fought so hard to get it done. But it bears little chance in penetrating the national news of the day. Of course, it's a bridge. Also, it's a new bridge. I've heard this issue before. America loves to build new roads, new bridges, new everything, because you get to cut the ribbon and it looks good. What America really needs is to invest in maintenance. Maintenance. Opening a new bridge, that's gonna look fucking great in the photo shoots. Oh, Pete Buttigieg gets to travel across the country to local newspapers where they photograph him standing with the mayor cutting the ribbon. Yeah, that's gonna look awesome. See you, Blaze. Awesome for Pete Buttigieg. But the roads are still crumbling, my man. Our task here is to deliver so much good news that that the volume of it overweighs the tendencies to focus on what went wrong. I think we might do this. One formula is that we've delivered the most significant economic legislation since FDR, the most important infrastructure initiative since Eisenhower, and the second most important healthcare work since LBJ, all while dealing with the first land war in Europe since Truman and facing the biggest public health crisis since Wilson, with the slimmest governing majority in Congress in almost 100 years. And that's gonna impact people's material conditions. How? Like you're still just tweaking the margins. You see it that way, and you think, well, yeah, that's great. We've got to shout that from the rooftops. Let's talk about Christianity. Oh, Christianity. The first time I heard you say Christ and not Jesus, I figured you were an Episcopalian? Christ. Jesus. They're two different types of emphasis, you know? I'm not sure if it's in the book as a tell, but that's how I read it. So how does your faith influence you? Well, every policy decision I make should be equally fair to people of every faith and no faith. It should be as defensible to me as someone who is religious as it would be if I were not. Well, every policy... You're head of the Department of Transportation. What fucking religious actions could you make? Education, now that I get. Education, I absolutely get. At the same time, you can't help but notice certain rhymes between your religious convictions and the choices you're called to make in a job like this. There's a lot in the faith tradition that I hold close about the least of these. There's a lot in the faith tradition that I hold close about the least of these, the imperative to help the needy. This doesn't go to the worth of your choice. This doesn't go to the worth of your choices, but even your worth as a person, which depends in no small measure on how you make yourself useful to those who have the least power and the least means. You're head of Department of Transportation. What the fuck are you talking about? When you're making public policy, you're often asking yourself, how does this choice help people who would have the least going for them? So that's part of it. I don't need God to think that way. The fact that you need the fact that you need God, or at least purports to need God, tells me that if you didn't believe, what the fuck would you do then? What would you do then? Running DOT seems to suit you. There are more ways the challenges of transportation speak to your spiritual side. There's a lot in the spiritual tradition around journeys, around roads, right? The conversation of St. Paul happens on the road. I think we are all nearer to our spiritual potential when we're on the move. Something about movement, something about travel pulls us out of the routines that numb us to who we are, to what we're doing, to everything from our relationship with each other to our relationship with God. That's part of the reason why so many important things in the Bible happens on highways. And then journeys. They're always just marvelous. I'm sure they're marvelous when you're driving around in a Mustang EV. I'm sure. Every flight is a marvel. Every flight is a marvel that pulls us out of that in the same way that religious ritual. No. Fuck. Oh my God, he's jerking himself off so hard. Every flight is a marvel that pulls us out of that in the same way that religious rituals, holidays, liturgies are one kind of routine that pulls us out of another kind of routine. It's flying, man. Once you've done it 5, 6, 7 times, it's just flying. It's tedious. It's boring. You're crammed in a sardine box full of other people who want to be in another location desperately. The only way you can probably feel good flying is if you, I don't know, if you fly first class, fly private. Yeah. Flying private, that would be a religious experience probably. Oh, yeah. When you get on a plane, people buckle their seatbelts and listen to the flight attendants. Very predictable pronouncements. Nobody listens to them. Nobody listens to them. What are you talking about? Everyone is just doing anything else but listening to them. Or trying at least. Very predictable pronouncements. It's routine. It's almost a ritual, right? No, it's law. And yet you're preparing to fly through the heavens. Life is a combination of drudgery and miracles. Part of what keeps me at home in the Episcopal faith is that it is liturgically rather conservative. Liturgy is like a script for a religious service, the official set of rules for performing a religious ceremony. Okay. Part of what keeps me at home in the Episcopal faith is that it is liturgically rather conservative. So it keeps close to the traditions of performing rituals and stuff like that. I like that routine. I don't know if you'll remotely agree with me. Oh, thank God it's almost over. But I've come to consider January 6th as a triumph. A triumph of something like drudgery, or at least of the mundane. What? Even after terrible violence, destruction, and bloodshed, came to the U.S. Capitol, Congress returned to carry out the clerical workday. The paperwork got filled. The flag of the ordinary was still there. What? The fucking traitors are still in power. They still hold office. You haven't gotten rid of the fucking rot at the center of January 6th. Get fucking rid of them. Scream it from the rooftop. Not this. Here's are you if I was Pete Buttigieg, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Did you Marjorie Taylor Greene is still in office. Bobo is still in fucking office. What are you talking about? What? Josh Hawley is Josh Hawley still in office? What's the crippled guy's name? Yeah, he's still in office. What's the crippled guy's name? But Josh Hawley is still in office. Like, one guy got ousted. One guy. Wow. Yeah, I agree. There's something that bears more attention about how Congress stayed, came back, finished the job. That's real. They didn't finish the job. They finished the job of the day, but they didn't finish the job. That's real. And the fact that the Republic held the Republic, shouldn't that be with a small r? Held is real. And another under-remarked fact is the courts did a good job of surfacing what was true and what was fake. Because in the US court of law, there are actual consequences to lying. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Bobo, Josh Hawley, they're all still in power. Trump can still run for office. And another under-remarked fact is the courts did a good job of surfacing what was true and what was false, because in the US court of law, there are actual consequences for lying. Oh my God, he actually believes in the system. And you have to actually present evidence in favor of your client, so it turns out to be less susceptible for the warping of reality. Every fucking Republican nominee and subsequently judge on the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. Every fucking Republican nominee lied. Every single one of them. Every fucking one of them. But sure, Buttigieg. That being said, part of why we would hesitate to assign any triumph to that day, in addition to just the awfulness of it, is that we don't yet know how the story ends. Yeah, because you haven't dealt with it. Horrible article. There's not a mention of East Palestine in the entire article. Not one mention, like giving him I want to rest my hand here. I can't. Not one mention of East Palestine. Or is it Palestine? Like, that's like the biggest crisis. The most recent biggest crisis. And there was a second train derailment that got hardly any attention. Like, at least just throw us a bone at least. But no. Nope. Can't do that. Horrible article. Fucking fluff piece. Talk about giving a verbal blowjob. Yeah. So Buttigieg is being puffed up here because he, unless Biden actually runs, like if his dementia catches up to him, then they are putting Buttigieg at the forefront. They want him so fucking bad to be president. So fucking... He's a young millennial. He's a Navy SEAL. Not Navy SEAL. He was in the Navy. He speaks Norwegian. Oh, we have to listen to his Norwegian. I remember being somewhat impressed by it at the time, but I don't know if I'm gonna be more today. Like knowing what a fucking plant he is.